So when the team with the highest payroll in the MLB is still trying to contend in 2020 while shredding a ton of payroll and could also trade one of the best players in the league, well, we gotta talk about that.
Hold up, wait until the whole team show up, yeah. I'm in Neverland, can't grow up, yeah.
Hey, how's it going, guys? So today I am going to be talking about what the Boston Red Sox should do over this next offseason to try and contend in 2020, and then also giving my predictions on who they should sign, for how much money, and also how they would really be able to still try and find a way to get under that 208 threshold like they're trying to. So before I forget, don't forget, go down and subscribe. I post videos like this every single week talking about the biggest sports topics and giving my opinion and trying to give a little bit of analysis on it. And I also do the same exact thing every single day on my Twitter and also my Instagram. You can follow both of those right up there. Just to start off, I already did make a video very similar to this about a month ago talking about how to fix the Red Sox and kind of went over what they were trying to do for this offseason and sort of explained what their struggles are going to be this offseason with payroll, and also giving my analysis on who they should potentially trade, who they should potentially sign. But in my opinion, I didn't really get too in depth on who they should sign and who would be the best people to really replace all the free agents that they did lose, and would also be able to fill the holes, in my opinion, that are the biggest needs for the Red Sox for this upcoming season. And now that they've been able to have around 2 months to be able to do a few signings and be able to have a little bit of trade talks, I figured I would give my opinion on those trade talks and also analyze sort of where those players should go, and also talking about what players we should sign that are still available. So I just want to start off real quick talking about the few signings that the Red Sox have had so far this offseason. And the first one was Jose Pariza, who's a utility player that can play all around the infield. And he's very good. He's a very good average offensive player, and he can hit for a little bit of power. In 2018, we saw it with 14 home runs, and then it dipped a little bit with 6 home runs in 2019, and the same thing happened with his average. But it'll be really interesting to see if he's able to bring a lot of great base hits to that Red Sox lineup and be able to be slotted in anytime throughout any of those infield positions when anybody needs to be sat for an amount of period of time or somebody gets injured. I think he's a really low risk, high reward player that I think the Red Sox got a great value for. And then the next signing, Martin Perez, he's a pretty good pitcher. I'd say about mediocre, but he's going to be our 5th starter, and he actually did have a better season, in my opinion, than Rick Porcello did. And he's, from looking at the different StatCast analysis, he does have really good swing and a miss stuff. And so it'll be a really good replacement from what we had last year at the bottom of the rotation. There was a lot of inconsistency. So it's interesting to see Chaim Bloom going on the low risk sort of side of the starting pitching market with a $6 million 1-year deal. And then he also did give Martin Perez an option for $6 million for a 2nd year. And so if he does really perform well, and we really like him on the team, and he'll really fit for the future, we'll be able to pick him up for that 2nd year. And so now that the Red Sox have 4 left-handed pitchers in their rotation and only 1 right-hander, it all points to David Price getting traded, in my opinion, especially when he has $31 million still left to be paid to him in the next 3 seasons. And especially when the Red Sox are at the $225 million mark and are trying to get down to $208 million, especially with the new baseball of operations, Chaim Bloom, he's going to really want to try and do anything possible to get those bad contracts off the Red Sox and be able to find a way to be able to flip them for some good young talent that could either be put into the very thin farm system that the Red Sox do currently have, or would be able to help with our current needs that we do have. And so the teams that are interested in him right now are teams like the Angels, the Cardinals, the Padres, and the Reds. And so it will be really interesting now that Garrett Cole has been taken off of the market and the Angels are in a big need for a starting pitcher, if they'll go out and try and grab David Price. And so a rumor has been going around that it's been discussed between the Red Sox and the Padres that Will Myers could be slotted into that deal to be able to offset the amount of money that David Price will be putting onto the Padres, because Will Myers still does have around $60 million that is still owed to him from his extension, but he still is a very young, good, productive hitter in my opinion, and he's not a bad defender either. And even though he's hit around 230 range in the last few seasons, he still is able to hit around 20 home runs. And he's able to be either slotted in the outfield, first base, and those would be great positions to be able to be filled at any really certain point when we need to be flip-flopping with the lineup, if there needs to be any sort of changes with injuries and that sort of stuff. Because we've seen it a lot with the Red Sox in the last few years. Injuries really start to pile up throughout the season, especially with the position players. And when we have versatility throughout the bench and also throughout the roster, it really does help when we're able to slot guys in like we have been able to do with guys like Michael Chavez going from either first to third to second, or Brock Holt like we saw last year. In the last 4 years, he's been a great utility player that we just slot right in anytime anybody gets injured. So it will also be interesting how we do fix that rotation, especially if David Price does get traded, because we will still need somebody to be able to be slotted in to try and still contend. But we still need to make sure that that player is going to be a very low cost and in the Red Sox range, to not want to really overdo it this offseason and really try and make smart moves, especially for Chaim Bloom being such a new executive and trying to do his best to really shape this Red Sox roster, especially for the future. So in my opinion, one of the people that will be traded is a guy like Jackie Bradley Jr., who has $11 million that is going to be paid to him through this next season. And in my opinion, he's not worth $11 million, especially with the average that he has had in the last 3 seasons. And don't get me wrong, he is the best defending center fielder in the MLB. That's without question. But he can't hit whatsoever. Like we saw it obviously in 2018, he had that spark of power in the playoffs. But in my opinion, he still isn't going to be that player that is able to produce every single day. And I've heard it for the last 4 years that he's going to figure out his hitting. He's going to figure out his hitting through just changing his swing, going down to AAA. But I just haven't seen any sort of changes. And especially when when the Red Sox are really trying to cut their payroll, I think it's going to be their best bet to try and trade Jackie Bradley Jr. to try and get either a starting pitcher, a relief pitcher, or someone that would be able to fill in one of those infield positions that would really be able to help out that lineup. And so it'll be really interesting what the Red Sox will be able to get for Jackie Bradley, since he hasn't really been that great offensive push for the last few years. But with that defensive versatility, he will definitely be a gem for any team looking for a great outfielder. So as we see it right now, the biggest needs for the Red Sox are starting pitching, relief pitching, especially for relief pitching. Oh my gosh, Dave Dombrowski was absolutely clueless and just totally ignored the relief pitching all last year, and it was one of the biggest reasons why the Red Sox weren't able to win those close games. But so then also first base is one of the biggest needs, and then it'll be interesting what they do with second base, if they're going to keep Michael Chavez on second base or if they're going to slot him into first. You know, there's a lot of different possibilities that the Red Sox will be able to do. And so, in my opinion, a few good low-priced first baseman options that are still on the free agent market that I think would be able to bring a lot of good firepower to the Red Sox offense and would be able to really have some great seasons at Fenway Park, especially with that green monster in left field, are guys like Travis Shaw, CJ Cron, and Greg Bird. So to start off with Travis Shaw, he started off with the Red Sox coming up through the farm system, and then they traded him in 2017, and then he went off for the Brewers. He hit around 29 home runs, and then last year we saw he got a little bit injured and his stats really started to dip, but he's going to be a very good around 250 hitter, and he's going to give you about 20 to 30 home runs. And in my opinion, that's about the same thing, if not better, than what we've been getting from Mitch Moreland. But obviously Mitch has been able to give the Red Sox a lot of doubles. And so now getting to CJ Cron, he's a really good hitter like Travis Shaw, who is able to get around 25 to 30 home runs every single season, and he's still relatively young. Both Travis Shaw and CJ Cron are around 28, 29 years old. And then we get into Greg Bird, who everybody thought he was going to be this great first baseman for the Yankees, and there was a lot of hype around him coming up through the farm system, but he hasn't really been able to do anything just because he's been plagued with injuries. So I think he'd be a really good low-risk player that I think it'd be really interesting if the Red Sox either put him on the bench or in AAA. actually, now that I think about it, he's not going to want to go to AAA because that's the reason why he got released from the Yankees. But I think it would be really interesting if he would be able to, really turn things around and be a very good difference maker for the Red Sox. But all those signings would be very low risk, high reward, in my opinion. And now, if Mookie Betts does get traded, and in my opinion, he should, Mookie Betts should get traded from the Red Sox because I think it's our best option with where our payroll is at the moment and where I think we're trying to get our payroll flexibility for the future. And with us trying to pay Mookie Betts $30 million a year this next season, and we haven't even really talked to him about an extension yet, and he's really open about trying to really test the free agent market, I think it's a real great possibility that he's not going to sign with the Red Sox again at the end of this offseason, and that it'd be the best bet for the Red Sox at this moment with his highest value, especially when if they try and trade him at the trade deadline, teams are going to be like, well, we only have him for about 3 more months. But at this point, he's just going to be a 1-year rental. And then I think that they'd be able to get a lot better talent with a trade in this offseason. And then I think that they'd be able to get either a very good, young, talented MLB-ready player, and then around 3 either mid-level to high-level prospects that would be able to really bolster that very thin farm system that the Red Sox do have. And that's one of the biggest things that Chaim Bloom has said throughout this offseason, that the biggest goal for the Red Sox this offseason is to have the strongest farm system possible at all times. And I 100% agree with that. And it's very interesting to see the direction that the Red Sox are going right now, especially compared to where they were going with Stone Age Dave Dombrowski, where he just totally gutted the entire Red Sox farm system and was just trying to win now, which we saw worked in 2018, but then it was just a huge disappointment in 2019. And so if Mookie does get traded, I think some great guys that would be able to come in and be able to be slotted into that offense and be able to be very low-priced options that would be able to give a lot of really good high reward are guys like Avisail Garcia, and then another one would be Domingo Santana. And so Avisail Garcia was really good for the Rays last year, and they only paid him $2 million. And he was able to get around 20 home runs, and he hit in the 300 mark for average. And then also Domingo Santana was able to hit 20 home runs with a 250 average last season. And I think that they'd be a great person, but both of those players would be great people to be able to be slotted into the Red Sox outfield, especially at a price around $5 million, and especially with how Jackie Bradley has been playing. I think, especially offensively, I think both of those guys will be great upgrades for either if Mookie Betts or Jackie Bradley does get traded. So there's a lot of different possibilities for the Red Sox at the starting pitching position, and I think it'll be really interesting how they're able to really mold this starting rotation after the last few years. It was looked at when Chris Sale was traded to the Red Sox. Oh my God, they're looked at as the Golden State Warriors of the MLB. They had this crazy starting rotation. But we saw it last year from all these injuries and how much money we've had to spend for this rotation. For the value that we are getting for the money that we are paying, it just doesn't make any sense. And so I think guys like Taijuan Walker, Rich Hill, Danny Salazar, and also guys like Alex Wood or Julio Teheran would be really interesting options for the Red Sox to either slot into that number 3 slot or the number 4 slot. And especially with guys like Taijuan Walker, who's only 29 years old and is coming off of an injury season, it'll be really interesting if he's able to have a really great comeback season with the Red Sox, and especially with a very low risk, in my opinion, and high reward player like him. I think he'd be a very good signing for the Red Sox, and especially like a guy very similar position as Taijuan Walker was last year. Danny Salazar, he was injured all that year, but he's still very early in his 30s, and he was a very effective pitcher for the Indians for about 2 years ago. And I think he'd be a very good low-priced pitcher that the Red Sox will be able to pick up for around $10 million, right in about that Lance Lynn range. And even if they did pay him around $13 to $12 million, I think that would still be very good for a number 4 starter. So now just looking at the bullpen, I think some guys that would be really interesting for the Red Sox to pick up are guys like Sergio Romo, Aroldis Vizcaino, guys like Sam Dyson, or even Daniel Hudson. You know, Daniel Hudson was able to close out that World Series for the Nationals, and he was really effective for them all last year. Vizcaino had around 2.30 ERA all last year, which would be absolutely amazing for the Red Sox because they do need a setup guy, and also I think they do need a closer because really that bullpen looked so gross last year and it was very discombobulated, and I think Heimblum's going to want to have a lot more of a structured set up bullpen schedule, especially of how gross it looked all last season. And so it'll be really interesting what the Red Sox do with the first base and second base position, like I said before, if they will slot Chavez into second base or if they'll move him over to first. And some guys that I think would be really interesting for the Red Sox for second base would be a guy like Cesar Hernandez, and then also another guy that would be really interesting for first base that would move from third to first would be a guy like Miguel Franco. Just a few guys that haven't really been able to perform in the last few years, but are very good players still because they've been able to perform over the last 3 years, and I think that they'd be able to bring a lot of value to the Red Sox's team and their roster, especially during this bridge year when they're still trying to figure out where the best future is for each of the players on the team at the moment. So that's just a little bit of my opinion and some analysis on how I believe the Red Sox will be able to be a contending team in 2020. And those are just some of my predictions on who they should and will sign during this next offseason. Let me know in the comment section below your guys' opinion. Also, give me a big thumbs up if you did really like this video and want me to make more videos like this in the future. And if you want to know anything that's going to be going on in the MLB offseason, go down and subscribe. I'm going to be posting videos every single week talking about the biggest stories that's going on in the MLB, the NHL, and the NBA. So thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to go up and follow my Instagram and also my Twitter. I greatly appreciate all the support as always. You guys have a great rest of your day. See you next time.
The band, that's big views. Boarded the plane, won't be back to May now.